can't redeem yourself, I don't think you'll be thinking about friends. I don't even think it'll be in your consciousness at that moment. Because you'll be sweating up to here. You'll be drowning in your sweat, perhaps. Surah 6 and verse 70. And even if he offers every ransom, it will not be accepted from him. And Surah 57:15. So this day no ransom shall be taken from you hypocrites, nor of those who disbelieve, those who rejected faith. Your abode is the fire. That is your mawla. That is your friend. Proper place to claim you. And an evil refuge is it. Imagine that the fire would become your friend. That's scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
Allah stated that if the people do not believe in His messenger and follow what He sent them with, then when they meet Him on the day of resurrection, after remaining on the path of disbelief, their family lineage and or the intercession of their masters will not help them at all. It will not be accepted of them, even if they paid the earth's fill of gold as ransom, or twice that. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah in verse 254, before a day comes when there will be no bargaining, nor friendship, nor intercession. Those who reject faith, they are the wrongdoers. And I think, these should be motivating verses in our life. These should be the verses that really help put that fear of God in us, to drive us to do what will make us have a successful day on the day of our meeting Allah. Inshallah. No person will angrily or anxiously defend you on the day or try to save you from Allah's punishment. No relatives, politicians, or people of authority will be able to get us off the hook or offer you any help. Yes?
If we give all the gold and everything in the name of Allah here, we inshallah will go to Jannah.
If we give it here, inshallah.
Yes.
Yes. But most people, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, if you have one mountain of gold, you'll want another one. And we see that all the time. We see people in this dunya. It reminds me of when the stock market fell. I was living in New York City at the time, and there was a man there that I believe he committed suicide. He had 13 million and he lost like 7, so that he had 6 left and he committed suicide. Imagine blowing your brains out with $6 million. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. I believe I could have got some help with $6 million. I could have found enough psychiatrists and psychologists to pull myself together.
Once I gave all my gold jewelry. I'm not trying to impress anybody. Somebody said Asifa was so depressed, she gave all her gold jewelry away.
Yes.
I was not
depressed.
I thought that what I will do, will I take it in my grave?
No.
So I told them that I cannot take it in my grave. I have to give it before I die.
Yes, brother.
I heard that there was something that Prophet Muhammad also says that he would never take up even an ounce of gold. Right? Men are not allowed to wear gold.
No, we don't wear gold. That's right. Men do not wear gold.
Did you tell us that before? Or
Yes. We talked about it. All right. Surah 23 and 88. While He, Allah, grants refuge or protection, but none grants refuge from Him. Yusuf Ali says, say, who is it whose hand is the governance of all things? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who protects all, but is not protected of any. Say, if you know. So on that day, none will punish as He will punish. And none will bind the wicked disbelievers and polytheists as He will bind them. Chastisement in the first verse and the binding in bonds in the second verse are two distinct phrases and penalties. Chastisement involves pain and agony, such as cannot be imagined anywhere else or from any other source. For it touches our innermost soul and cannot be compared with anything our bodies may suffer or others may inflict. Bonds imply confinement, want of freedom, the closing of a door that was once open, but which we deliberately passed by. We see that others accepting in faith and entering that door, thus shutting out of what might have been, is worse than any other bonds and confinement we can imagine, and maybe worse than actual chastisement, pain, and agony. And I think about the 18 years that I spent in prison as an imam, camera, to make sure that the whole world doesn't misunderstand here. When I would visit people in solitary confinement, you know, there was a little trap door, and they open the trap door and they slide their food in there. And then they're in there for 23 or 24 hours a day. They are taken in shackles to have a shower and guarded. But folks, let me tell you something. As inhumane as we think that is in the world today, on that day, it is not even going to compare to the worst thing that we have ever seen in this world. And I love the way this verse starts. What is the matter with you? Why do you not help one another, as you used to do in the world? Nay, but that day they shall surrender, they shall submit to judgment. You will have no choice. You will just get what you got coming to you. Yes?
So Allah is merciful just up to that point, because there's no mercy in this whatsoever.
Yeah. His mercy, all the mercy is in this life. When we look at the prostitute who fed the dog, who's guaranteed paradise, the mercy took place in this life. But for those who don't believe, for those who reject faith, on that day it's over. Unless by His will there's an intercessor. And I read to you all the verses about the intercessor. But we don't know whether that's going to happen. And so I think it's pertinent for us to focus on the penalties, so that, inshallah, we clean up our act, so that we can have a successful day that day. No one can stand and intercede except with the will of Allah, for it is a question of personal responsibility for each soul. No one can help another. Can you imagine? And because women are so relationship oriented, I often, I think like a woman. That's probably not a good thing to say on camera. I'm always trying to teach the husbands in my therapy office to think like their wives, and their wives to be able to think like a man, so that we can integrate and understand how we operate. But I cannot imagine what it will be like for a mother not to stand for their child. Because it's the father that plays the tougher role, and when the kid doesn't, when the bird doesn't get out of the nest, the father bird comes and kicks the bird out of the nest, and the bird flies 99 point something times. But the mom will never kick the bird out of the nest. It's just not in their nature. Now maybe there's a few exceptions to every rule, but it's so hard for me to fathom what it will be like. Can you imagine? But you won't even be thinking about them, Allah says. Even to try to fathom what it would be like, the mothers won't think about their children. It's like you can't contemplate it. All the previous arrogance of this life will be gone, but they will face each other. And those who were given a false lead, as in the story of Pharaoh in Surah 20 and verse 79, who led astray instead of leading them aright. Surah 37, 27 to 30. And they will turn to one another and question one another. They will say, "It was ye who used to come to us from the right hand of power and authority. You were the judge in Orange County. You were the judge in Lake County. You were the magistrate." They will reply, "Nay, ye yourselves had no faith, nor had we any authority over you. Nay, it was ye who were a people in obstinate rebellion. And you see, we have a mental health disorder called help me out here. Obstinate, let me see. Oppositional defiance disorder. It just didn't want to come out. And I think about that when I see this. Because they're just going to tell you, just like it is, you were just rebellious. That's it. Don't blame me. I didn't cause you to do what you did. And in this day, we want to blame other people. If we get in trouble, well, it was you. If you hadn't told me to do that, I wouldn't have done it. Yeah, the ones that are laughing, we know why we're laughing, right? Yeah. So, we're always looking to blame somebody else, but on that day, it won't be possible. Ain't nobody got time for that. That's what the judge is going to tell us. No, it wasn't me. You chose that. You wanted that. You just wanted me to be your scapegoat.
Even Shaitan will say that to us.
Yeah.
That it
That's
was
right.
not my fault.
That's exactly
it
right.
It is in the Quran also.
Like I just called you.
That's
You did
right.
it.
That's right. This is the mutual recrimination, and I ordered this because in this life we think about don't incriminate me. And I have a funny story because I remember when Lorraine and I lived in California, we met this couple, and her husband would say to her, "Don't incriminate me." Say that to his wife. But on this day, it's going to be a recrimination. It's not going to be a one-time statement. It's going to be repetitive. This is the mutual recrimination of the sinners. Those who sin against those whose investigation or evil example led them into sin. The misleaders in the life here below often use their power to influence to spread evil. The right hand is the hand of power and authority. Instead of using it for righteous purposes, they used it for evil, selfishly for their own advantage, and mischievously for the degradation of others. The fact that others mislead or that evil example is before us does not justify us falling from right conduct. It is our iman that saves us from the fall. You see, when your faith is strong, it's like Yusuf alayhi salam, whenever the most beautiful woman of the town seduced him, he said, "May Allah make heaven, may Allah make paradise more beautiful than this woman." See, that's what we should be saying when the Victoria's Secret book comes in the mail. Or we see it on I-4, may Allah make paradise more beautiful than what's in that magazine. But you see, our nafs, our desires, are yelling and screaming louder than the Quran that we know and tempting us. And we forget that day. But if we have no faith, ourselves in righteousness, or a future life, or the reality of Allah's law, how can we blame others? The misleaders can well say, "You will be judged according to your misdeeds." This responsibility is personal and cannot be shifted on the other. The others may get a double punishment for their own evil and for misleading their weaker brethren. So, look at that now. That these people who did mislead, perhaps, even though they aren't responsible, if you're a leader, you may get a double punishment. A double punishment for doing it and a double punishment for misleading other people. But the weaker brethren cannot go free from responsibility of their own deeds. For evil means a personal rebellion against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we believe in a personal God, evil has no authority over us, except insofar as we deliberately choose it. And we are either reflecting or rejecting. And I go back to this all the time. If we are reflecting on what Allah has said, as long as we are reflecting and our tongues are wet with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will be accepting. But when we say, I know the Quran says this, but, then that's called rejection. When we are not even saying it, but in our life we are living it, we are rejecting it, then we are in obstinate rebellion or in oppositional defiance to what Allah has said. Allah's decree of justice requires that every soul shall taste the consequence of its own sins, and that decree must be fulfilled. No excuses can serve. It is only Allah's mercy that can save us. Selfish arrogance is the seed of sin and rebellion. In verse 34 of Surah Al-Baqarah, we saw the sin and rebellion of Satan. And in Surah 27, verse 39 of Pharaoh. It is this kind of arrogance which prevents man from mending his life and conduct. When he speaks of ancestral ways, and we see that all the time in our community, people telling you to do stuff that's cultural, but it is not found in the Quran and the Sunnah. They are holding on to their ancestral ways and telling you that it's from Allah. Or public opinion, or national honor. He is usually thinking of himself or of a small clique which thrives on injustice. The recognition of Allah, the one true God. And I'm going to continue, but I want you to think about what I just said. People beat their drums and try to get other people to join their band whenever they are trying to promote these things that on the day of judgment are going to be shared. Because you adopt them instead of adopting the truth of the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's scary. Yes, Bill.
Imam, I'm a bit confused. In the beginning, you showed a verse saying that pride or you're better than others.
Yes.
Isn't that, what context is that? That sounds arrogant to me.
No.
For Muslims to say that they're better than the Jewish people.
Well, this is what Allah said. In other words, it's about the best of Ummah being developed. In other words, what it's talking about, it's not an individual pride.
Yeah.
It is the fact that Allah said that I have now created an Ummah that has a word that has no contradictions in it. I have completed the Old Testament through the New Testament, or the Torah through the Injil, and now I've completed the Torah and the Injil with the Quran. But there's not going to be any more. And I gave you the last messenger who was the most perfect of men. So that's the context.
But here, the context is that once we become quote-unquote Muslims, we feel better than others. There's
No, that's not the
humility.
context. No, that's not what I'm teaching. And that's not the context of the verse. The context is as an ummah, as a nation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and invited the Israelites to come to the truth, the final revelation, the most evolved and most elevated way. Because look at the Torah. If you look at the Torah, the people under the Judaic law were living in bondage. This is a way of freedom. If you just surrender and obey, it is the best nation involved, but it doesn't mean individually.
It's the humility and the humbleness that differentiate you from.
Go ahead, sister.
The underlying, the statement is like he said, that Imam said that if we are practicing and going according to the book of Allah, if we're not doing that, just by saying the Shahada, it hardly.
Well, again, in practice, when you go, unfortunately, to mosques or masajid, you find the arrogance rather than the humbleness and the humility.
Remember a couple of weeks ago when I said only those who come with a lowly spirit?
Yes.
Do you remember that? Folks, we have to know that it's really important to understand that when Allah refers to the Ummah, This is the nation that He gave us if it is implemented. It's not we individually. Because it says that we individually were born with an uneasy spirit. And that if we don't check ourselves, it will lead us to perdition. So we individually were born with this uneasy spirit. We were born perfect, but we were born with an uneasy spirit. So we have to evolve. We have to purify ourselves and surrender. If we don't surrender, we are actually worse than the previous people because we were given the tools. And that's why the messenger said that if we do not rise up and do it, He'll send another people. So we have the potential. The Ummah itself was the best. But have we manifested? Have we realized the Ummah that Allah called us to? And we haven't. We've actually developed a divided Ummah. An Ummah whereby there are many minority groups. We've developed an Ummah where our women are not encouraged to come to the masjid. We've developed an Ummah where our reverts are not nurtured. We've developed an Ummah where our youth are not listened to or respected or invited to the masjid. That's what we have developed. But if we surrendered to Allah and we feared that day, we would be the best nation evolved. We have the potential. So this finishing here as the only standard of life and conduct, the eternal reality cuts out self and is therefore disagreeable to sin. If false gods are imagined who themselves would have weakness that fit in with sin, they give countenance to evils, and it becomes difficult to give them up unless Allah's grace comes to our assistance. Now it's amazing because if we have time today, we're going to see where the children of Israel, when Musa a.s. went up into the mount for 40 days, what did they do? They got impatient and they built a calf. So we actually, the beauty of Allah, the beauty of this tafsir is that every single thing is followed, the answer comes. If we hang in there, the answer comes. There's an example that follows, that actually just unfolds it so beautifully for us. Or at least that's how I see it. I don't know if you see it that way, that's how I see it. It's amazing. In Surah 46 and verse 28, then why did those whom they had taken for alihah, gods besides Allah, as a way of approach to Allah, not help them? Nay, but they vanished completely from them. So all of these false gods that people have, they're not going to be there for them. They're going to vanish. And they'll be standing alone. Also, Ad-Dahak said that Ibn Abbas said that Allah's statement in Surah 37 and verse 25, what is the matter with you? Why do you not help one another? Means this day you shall not have a refuge from us. Not this day. Ibn Jarir said that Allah's statement in Surah 2 and verse 48, nor will they be helped, meaning on that day, they shall neither be helped by any helper, nor shall anyone intercede on their behalf. No repeal or ransom will be accepted for them. All courtesy toward them will have ceased, along with any helpful intercession.
No bribe.
No bribes. No type of help or cooperation will be available for them on that day. The judgment will on that day be up to the most great, the most just, against whom no intercessor or helper can ever assist. He will then award the evil deeds its kind and will multiply the good deeds. There's the mercy of Allah. This is similar to Allah's statement in Surah 37 verses 24 to 26. But stop them, verily, they are to be questioned. What is the matter with you? Why do you not help one another? Nay, but that day they shall surrender. Verse 49. And remember when we delivered you from Pharaoh's people, who were afflicting you with hard tasks and a horrible torment, killing your sons and sparing your women. And therein was a mighty trial from your Lord. And remember, or recall, when we separated the sea for you, and saved you and drowned Pharaoh's people while you were watching. And this is that story I was sharing from Dr. Sadi a while ago. That how it must have felt to those people to turn back and see that. So verse 47 spoke of the special favors shown to the Israelites by Allah. Verse 49 begins the account of these favors. Someone had made a prediction to the Pharaoh that a child was going to be born to the Israelites who would destroy his kingship. So Pharaoh began slaughtering all the male infants as soon as they were born. He spared the females, as there was nothing to fear from them. And moreover, they could, on growing up, serve as maidservants. The children of Israel were saved from Pharaoh and his army who drowned. Allah said to the children of Israel in verse 49, "Remember my favor on you, and remember when we delivered you from Pharaoh's people, who were afflicting you with a horrible torment. Meaning I, Allah, saved you from them and delivered you from their hands in the company of Musa, and they subjected you to horrible torture. This favor came after the cursed Pharaoh had a dream in which he saw a fire emerge from Beit al-Maqdis in Jerusalem. And then the fire entered the house of the Coptics in Egypt, with the exception of the children of Israel." And I think it's amazing here again because Allah saved these Israelites. And we are here, and how many of us have idols? We know that in the Muslim community, people have idols. They have things that are idols. I'm afraid, I hate to say it because sometimes people get offended by this, but people have cars that they worship. And I'm not even going to name a brand because I don't want to do that because it gets taken out of context. But you know that people do. And they'll say, don't park too close to my car. Don't park too close to my idol. Now I'm going to hurt you. Oh my goodness, that thing has a ding on it now. Somebody has opened the door on my idol, on my car. Or they have homes the same way. And other idols, bank accounts, stocks.
Nationalism is also an idol.
Nationalism. That they work endlessly to surrender to their nationalism, but not to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. And we see it all the time. People will fight. For even their opinion becomes idols. We see it all the time.
What do you mean by that? You have bank account and you have this and that. Those are idols?
They become idols for some people because they will surrender to that. They will spend their whole life serving those things instead of Allah.
How can they serve this?
How can they serve it? They wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is they go to their computer and they watch the stock market.
No.
And they sit in front of it all day. There are people that do this. I have an uncle that does this. I never call my aunt that my uncle is not in the basement guarding his money. I mean seriously, when I call her, I'll say, "How's Uncle so-and-so?" She say, "Oh, well, he's down there watching the stock market." He's guarding his idol.
In crash of 2000, I said, "Allah give, Allah took."
That's right.
Because I lost so much, zero. So all these stuff went to zero. I said, "Yes, you were greedy, so you got it."
His purport was that his kingship would be toppled by a man among the children of Israel. See, his kingdom. Look at what's going on in certain countries that are highly populated by Muslims. Families, royal families are guarding their kingdom. They're not worried about the day of judgment. They're just worried that their cousins get the oil money. Is that not an idol? I believe and I deem by Allah that the greatest day in the history of the Muslim world will be when the oil is gone. Because we will be humbled then. It was also said that some of Pharaoh's entourage said that the children of Israel were expecting a man among them to arise who would establish a state for them. So that state was a threat to them. Anything that's a threat to you folks means what?
You worship it.
That maybe you worship it. We should open our eyes to that. If it's a threat that you might get a little dingy-wingy on your car, you might need to look a little closer. Are you more concerned about the Quran that's in your car or the dingy-wingy on your little car? And I'm serious, folks. I know I like to crack jokes about it, but I mean, where do we come from? Look at us when we drive up in certain cars, when we get a new car. Our heads are so big, you can't see the car. And we are so concerned about that ride. People refer, it's my ride. Yeah. How you like my ride, bro? Not how you like my imam. Not how you like my dean. How you like my ride, bro? That's what's important. You gotta have a cool ride. You gotta have the right rims. You gotta have the whole thing finished out. But never mind if you got the finishing on your imam. It's serious, folks. What are the things that we love or the things that we talk about? They're the things that are in our mind all the time. So after that dream, Pharaoh ordered that every newborn male among the children of Israel be killed, and that the girls be left alone. Imagine that his kingdom, that the thread of this dream and the thread of his kingdom was so important that I'm going to go kill every male. And we see this kind of arrogance. We see people get punitive when they don't get what they want in the world. When there's a threat to their God, to their idol, they get punitive. And they start doing mean and heinous things. He also commanded that the children of Israel be given tasks of hard labor and assigned the most humiliating jobs to them. The torment here refers to killing the male infants. In Surah Ibrahim, verse 6, this meaning is clearly mentioned. Who were afflicting you with horrible torment and were slaughtering your sons and letting your women live. You see, this man was devoid of wisdom anymore. Because what happens if you murder all the sons? There's no more population.
We must jump.
Yeah.
But didn't he say that he did it the opposite year? So like this year the baby boys wouldn't be killed, but next year they'll be killed. So that way there's labor.
Do what now?
Pharaoh, like he killed them the opposite year. Like this year he didn't kill boys, and then the next year he'll kill them.
Oh,
So that way there's always
He's
boys
taking a break for a
to
year.
do the work.
Wow.
The torment was hard tasks, slavery, punishment, slaughtering their sons and saving the women to be enslaved. So I'm going to show you, not only am I going to kill your sons, I'm going to enslave your women. The meaning of who were afflicting you is they humiliated you, as Abu Ubaidah stated. It was also said that it means they used to exaggerate in tormenting you, according to Al-Qurtubi. As for Allah saying, killing your sons and sparing your women, that explains his statement, who were afflicting you with horrible torment. Then it explains the meaning of the favor he gave them as mentioned in his statements. And remember, now look folks, I listed all these verses, verse 49, 50, 51, 53, 55, 58, 60, 61, 63, 67, 78, 84, 93 says, and remember and recall. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was reminding them, calling them and screaming. And look at what they do after he's telling them, remember, remember, remember. What do? Allah says, remember me 5 times a day. Remember me by keeping your tongue wet in praising me. And if we don't do that, and we don't develop our man, we find ourselves doing crazy things. In Surah Ibrahim, Surah 14 and 5, and remind them of the annals of Allah. Refers to the favors and blessings he granted them. He then said in Surah Ibrahim 14:6, and recall, O children of Israel, when Moses said to his people, remember the favor of Allah upon you, when He saved you from the people of Pharaoh, who were afflicting you with the worst torment, and were slaughtering your newborn sons and keeping your females alive. And in that was a great trial from your Lord. The reference back to Israel and Moses serves a double purpose. As an appeal to the people of the book, and as a reminder to the Quraysh of the favor now conferred on them by the coming among them of a greater prophet than Musa alayhi salam. So Allah mentioned saving their children from being slaughtered in order to remind them of the many favors that He granted them. Pharaoh is a title that was given to every disbelieving king who ruled Egypt. So a lot of people think that Pharaoh was just one man. But that's not the case, and I think it's important for us to realize that. It helps us understand much deeper. Whether from the Amalek, Canaanites, or otherwise just as Caesar, Khazar, is the title of the disbelieving kings who ruled Rome and Damascus. Also Kisra is the title of the king who ruled Persia, while Tuba is the title of the king of Yemen, and the kings of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, were called Negus and Negus. So when you see Pharaoh, it doesn't just mean one person. It means those powerful kings that usurp their power. So that's just an easier way to remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and therein was a mighty trial for your Lord. Ibn Jarir commented that this part of the ayah means our saving your fathers from the torment that they suffered by the hands of Pharaoh is a great blessing from your Lord. In the blessing, there is a test. The same as with hardship. For Allah said in Surah 21 and verse 35, and we shall make a trial of you with evil and with good. And in Surah Al-Araf 7, 168, we have tried them with prosperity and adversity in order that they might return to us. This is a reminder to us. This is a recalling to us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to try us